So today we will have three speakers with us from Emeritus Prof. Dato Dr. Halimah Badioze Zaman, the holder of Tan Sri Leo Moggie Distinguished Chair in Energy Informatics, Institute of Informatics and Computing in Energy, IICE, Universiti Tenaga Nasional, followed by Ms. Liz Kamaruddin, the Senior Advisor of the Tantalus Group, and last but not least, Ms. Izzana Salleh, Co-founder and Global President for Project Girls for Girls. Without further ado, I would like to invite all of our speakers, together with our moderator, Ms. Manap, the CEO of Please Borneo.
Test. All right, very good afternoon, everyone, and lucky us getting the last slot of the day, keeping you from your happy hour in the exhibition hall. So we will be there at the Penang Hall later, but thank you for staying back with us for this session. Now, originally the session was about women taking the lead or taking charge, but we decided to not repeat the whole thing again. It is in the previous session I saw someone asking the question, is there a fatigue of people talking about AI? So I think we also have a fatigue about people talking about women, you know, not enough women, women equality, equity. So we're going to talk about still women, because all of us are women here, but we want to talk about how it can be different when we have women leadership in the organization. And before that, I'd like to come up with the poll on some of you guys, all of the 10 of you guys here, or 12 people here in the crowd. So the question is, what is your company's current, sorry, not this one. I think it's more about how many women do you have, or representation of women you have in your company. I think there's another one. So the question is, so what is the gender breakdown of your company? Is it a majority women? Majority of them are men, or you have almost equal number of men and women in your company? So we see here, we've got 5 participants, 6 votes, total of 5-6 votes, a total of all of you here in the crowd. Okay, and some of you have almost equal number of men and women in your company. That's fantastic. But you can see 87% of you guys have a majority of women. And I must say, in this industry, event management, somehow women do better. Because it says that women are a bit more we have a bit more attention to detail, and it's easier for us to focus on the nitty-gritty. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. So we're nitpicking on every single thing sometimes. And in the events line, you need to have that. Now, there was a study by McKinsey and Company, and says companies with diverse gender representation at the executive level, not at the lower level, at the executive level, are 21% more likely to experience above average profitability. So it's not just about getting different ideas, it's about your bottom line now. Now, I'm gonna dive straight into how difficult it is for ladies to actually get a seat at the table. You can be very capable, but there's some people or some of the systemic fixation in our country perhaps, or in our community, that stops us from getting a seat at the decision-making table. And I'd like to ask Prof first, since you're sitting right next to me, how difficult was it to get to your level now, and what were your challenges? And did you face a lot of doubts when you did reach that level, or this level that you're at right now?
Is this on? now. Hello, 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 hello. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good evening. Thank you for that very interesting question. Yes, I came, let me just give you a little history, all right? I started working like 45 years ago. Yeah, so you can probably guess my age, no?
50.
70 this year, right? Okay. Yes, 70. So you can imagine when I first came into the university, can you? And at that time, I think it was more male dominant. Yeah, very much male dominant. Today, you see a different picture altogether. I mean, it's wonderful for me to be able to see that. You know, when I first came in at the age of 27 with my PhD, I came back from England at the age of 27 with my PhD. A very shy person, someone who was so embarrassed when people called her doctor. You know, I felt like going under the table, which is so different than it is today. You know, we have young people coming back at, you know, with their PhD and demanding a promotion after a year. You know, so that's the difference. Yeah? In those days, it was a very difficult situation in the sense that everything was so much male dominant. Yeah? And to reach where I am today, I think it has been lots of hills and mountains to climb. Yeah? Because as you reach a certain level in your life, even at this later stage of my life, you know, women especially, I think, we have a tougher time. I don't like to say that because I don't think we should be competing, you know, really. But then again, we cannot run away from that, you know, because women still have to work harder. Our hills and mountains are higher, yeah? Because sometimes it's the women themselves that want to bring us down as well. And of course, we already have the men. Yeah, yeah, the men is already there thinking that we're not good enough. Yeah, that they should be there first than us. Yeah, and I, from computer science, when I came back, I was the only girl. Yeah, in computer science, it was all men when I came back. In 1983, yeah, it was all men. I was the only woman. Yeah, and I know I had to work with men. But it was nice at a certain point of my life when we had, I remember when the MSc started, you know, and we were working with the government. And my team, which is all men and me, the lady, went for meetings with the ministries and everything. And when the guys were talking, they said, oh, we don't see her as a woman. So that was really something that I was so flattered, you know? Because they say, I don't see her as a woman or a man. She's just someone with the knowledge and the skill. And that was great. I think I felt so great then. You know, that's how I began to be much more confident and know that, you know, you can do it. We don't have to make ourselves, we can remain as ourselves. We can be as feminine and gentle as we are. You don't have to change, you know?
And that's a good point because some people think that they need to act like men for them to be heard, or you need to be like, you know, rough and tough and assertive, but you don't have to be.
No, yeah, I mean, you can be gentle and too, but you have to be assertive.
Yep.
Points at times when you need to be. But you don't have to be aggressive, you know? But you have to be assertive. That's important, yeah? Okay, I'll stop there first so that we'll give the chance to the others to speak.
And
first.
Liz, yeah, you were talking about some of the challenges that you faced. What were the instances where you were doubted by people at the table because you were there as a lady?
Okay, so,
So a little bit of history also, because if not, you wouldn't know. So I'm in an industry which is communications, which dominated by women. So men is a rarity.
Okay.
But all the people that I work with, my boss has always been a man because they're CEO. And comms has always been seen as sit there and look pretty. You know, I get really, really irritated when that happened. In my first job, my boss told me, Liz, please remember, yeah, when you come to the office, you must think like a man, work like a dog, but always look like a goddess. And I was, I was young, I was a bit insulted, and I said, bloody hell, these people. And until today, I still get insulted. Until today, yeah? So as I grow in my career, so I went, I've always seen myself as a comms person. I can't do business. I don't think so I can. I haven't tried, don't want to. I can't become a financial controller, not my job, don't really care, because I'm sure there's a lot more smart people out there, yeah? So as I grow in my career and always work in, I think 50% of my time work with international companies and multinational, and so just it culminates to this story, right? So being a comms person, they always look at you as being fluff. Pandai sangat ke comms ni, tak pandai lah, boleh buat event lah. Now I get very insulted when people say that, yeah? I remember when I was 30 years old baru, and I was already at that time, I was a manager, and my boss said, can you bring the tray in front, hold the tray and give it to and let this old man I'm not going to say who, to cut the ribbon. And this old VIP man, I was 30 years old again, and while he was taking the scissors, he rubbed my hand. Kalau sekarang ada sexual harassment, so dia macam, and then I was shocked, and I look at him, really old man, and I was like, bloody hell. Oh, sorry guys, I love to swear. So I said, but only bloody hell. Okay, so bloody hell, what is happening here? And then after that I told my boss, I'm sorry as much as I want to do this job, but I'm better than this. This is not my job. You can ask the tea lady to do it, or get one of the men. Yeah. Because I said, I don't do this. I said, my parents sent me to study, not to go and hold a tray, but to actually have a meaningful impact. And I stand by that until today, guys. So my last, rub hands and tray was 30 years old, and I'm ancient now, yeah? And I know that as a comms person, CEOs, until today, the JLC looked at comms people as basically just event management, manager and whatnot. I'm glad to see that it's not there now. Because why? Because the world, Malaysia especially, we have problem with our reputation, right? And we need people to be able to help when there's a reputation crisis. And people like me suddenly found that we are much more intelligent than before. And dulu, nobody in my profession, Prof, can become a board of directors, right? I sat in three public listed company board, and one of it is, of course, you all akan jerit sikit lah, BAT, yeah, which is of course tobacco, but I am there. So if you think about it, something that has never happened before, when nobody cares about communicators and have that seat at the table, they are now looking at it. So things have changed, guys. So there's hope for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And that's quite interesting. And in the events industry, I think we need to change some of the ways we do things. So every time we go, we have a award ceremony or a prize giving ceremony to our guests of honor, and usually these are all men. And now you have lady ministers, so that's great. They don't rub the hands of the dulang girls. But then you see, you have dulang girls. But why don't we have dulang boys? Why don't you get the boys to just hand over the prizes on stage? Is that beneath them? Is that beneath guys to do and just right for girls, just for girls to do, right? So that's something that we need to think about as event organizers. Izzana, how about you? What was your experience?
Sure. Firstly, thank you so much for having me, to the organizers and yourselves. It's such an honor to be on the panel with esteemed people of industry, those I've known from before and also just recently met. A little bit of background as well. I come from the biotech space, actually, even though now I focus a lot on the women's space. But I started out working in the US at Howard Hughes Medical Institute. I was a genetic engineer, and being in the biotech space, also not many women. But I think a bit more than computer science, Prof, because bio seems to attract more women. But in the genetic engineering space, there weren't many. But also, I at that time was during when Pak Lah was the Prime Minister. He made a call out for young Malaysians to come back and build the industry back home. And at that time, the industry that appealed to me was the food and agriculture industry. So I went from a fairly male-dominated space in the medical institute to the food and agriculture space. So that actually meant that I worked at the farm, dekat Gemas, Negeri Sembilan. My clients were butchers. So bila I masuk, walaupun dengan makeup dan rambut dah done, I masuk dekat belakang supermarket, dekat dapur, dekat hotel, and a lot of factories. I did a lot of OEM work because we were in the halal beef business. And that was a predominantly male business. And it's not your refined CFO, CEO type men. I was working with, first Pak Mus kat belakang dengan parang dia and everything, right up to, all the farmers from Australia and things like that. And the bias was always very strong. From the first job I had right until maybe like 2 jobs ago, very male dominated, the bias was very strong. And actually, that is fundamentally the reason why in the last 7 years I pivoted to a mostly women's space. So Girls for Girls, which is the hat that I represent today here at this event, is a not-for-profit organization, and we focus on helping young women and girls find their courage, vision, skills, and network to pursue their fullest leadership potential. And why we focus on these 4 prongs is based on my personal experience plus my other co-founders. How, we're a bunch of young, ambitious women. How do we learn from the mistakes of ourselves and also our seniors so that the next generation can go up much faster and better than us? Because, there's enough data. You can just sit there, open up your smartphone. When there's sufficient diversity at decision-making table, you get 21% growth in terms of your profit. Not only that, but when you think about governments, you make much better policies that impact your people better. For example, in India, there was a state where they had about, it was a small state, about 50% executive decision makers were women. It resulted in better quality water being out in that community. And that just happens when there's a woman at the table, because you're deciding on maybe not the larger infrastructure issues, but you're talking about the bread and butter, what's going to make my children, your children be able to grow much better, right? So both in for-profit and not-for-profit spaces, we see data that supports the importance of having diversity at the decision-making table. So where I am today, I have a lot to learn. I'm very aware of that from my seniors and the women who are very successful in this country. But we're doing our part in ensuring that your young girls and young women speak up, get the best education possible. If they're not able to fight their way through to get into the decision-making table, they open up a new table or they bring a chair, something of that kind of mindset. Because in Malaysia, Prof, you can testify to this better than I can, but we women, we make majority of the tertiary education grads, right?
Yeah. 70% in tertiaries are women, actually.
70%, that's astounding.
Yes.
However, what is disturbing is that that's not translated when we look at C-level, when we look at parliament, when we look at ministries, right? Dekat parliament, we're about between 10 to 14% over the last 30 years. We did move, 14.9% today. 30 years ago, it was 10%. In C-level position, okay, CFO, we're one of the best in Asia-Pacific region. We're at 37% CFO, but CEO and public listed company, we're still not quite there yet. Jangan cakap lah pasal cabinet, okay? So where we see we play a role is, because we have this question, in Girls for Girls, we always ask this question, if not you who make the change, then who? And more importantly, if not now, then when? So whatever role we can play, whatever resources we have, we do it. And that's why I'm in this space. So whilst I'm in the policy space, if there's an opportunity to be on boards, I'm there. But I play a huge role in the NGO space so that young women can aspire and also become like Liz or Prof out there? Inshallah.
Thanks, Izzana. Yeah, I have a question related to that, but I'd like to also remind everyone that you can ask your question on Pigeonhole. I'm not sure if we're supposed to flash. Yeah, so just keep your questions coming as we go along, and then I'll pick them up. So as we're waiting for your question, Liz, what do you think are based on your experience and maybe later Prof, the difference that women bring to the table? And we saw an example in India, a direct, impact on the community. But in your experience, what have you observed that women brought differently to the table compared to men?
I mean, I always tell people that women must always have the seat at the table. So that's the EXCO member. So I've been an EXCO member in that position before I decided to retire, semi-retire last year. It was about 15, 16 years that I was in there. Yeah? And I realized that when you have a woman, depending on which woman, we tend to listen a little bit more. But the problem with us is we always have to prove ourselves, right? The men are so easy. They're men. Whatever they say is God, right? And we women, we have to work harder to put our facts across. But I realized that when I don't say anything or keep quiet and listen, I actually achieve more. And I will only say when it's needed to say something. When I think not pressured by them, but pressured to tell something, then I'll put my point across, yeah? I also, as I grow in my career with senior leadership, yeah, I tend to learn how to be a bit more tactful, yeah, so that I won't be seen as aggressive. And it was not easy, because half of the time I want to hit their head, right? But I had to control myself. And even then, after controlling myself, I'm still being seen as aggressive. And the worst people who would tell you that I'm aggressive are the women. Like, excuse me, right? So it's not easy to get that seat. You work hard, you prove yourself 20 times, and you need to look demure and, nice. And when you are not nice, definitely not demure like me. So it's not easy. But I do believe that women should stand on their ground. Don't succumb to the prejudices of others. There's so many prejudices in this world. Betul tak? You have the skin color, your race, your religion. Come on. Don't make gender as a prejudice, especially women to women. And I think Malaysia have a long way to go. But if you ask me, when I spoke to my counterpart, in the outside world, they will tell you exactly the same. So the issue is not just Malaysia. The issue is all around the world. Somehow or other, we are always the weaker gender. But trust me. I have to quote this. I suka quote, sorry. Yeah? So there was a CEO, a friend of mine, who told me, I thought it was the most astounding thing I've ever heard from a CEO. He said, Liz, you are so lucky. You can go out, go in a meeting room, because I always thought he's lucky, right? Man can. So he turned the table. You go inside the meeting room, you wear a nice blouse, you do your hair, you wear nice shoes, you put on your wall paint, you look gorgeous, you enter the room, you sit down, you smile, and you give your points, right? And they all listen. I said, they do? He said, yes. Macam I cannot hide my face. I cannot hide my flaw. I don't have a wall paint. I have to come as I am. If I talk rubbish, I will look like rubbish. But you can still get away with it. And you know what? I've never looked at it at a man's point of view. And I love it. Then I decided that, it means that I have the advantage, not the disadvantage. So, think about it. And this is from a CEO, yeah? Quite a well-known CEO. I'm not going to mention his name, but that was amazing. Yeah?
I think I like that point because it's working for us now, for us women, because you have so many men in power, they have to fight amongst themselves to prove themselves, right? So as a woman, you probably, well, this is against myself saying that sometimes there is a quota that they have to fulfill. They have to sort of give you the attention because then they'll be judged as, not being fair to females. But that's working for you instead of against you. So if you're smart, that's okay. But if you're a bit dumb, then they'll listen to your dumb ideas. So that's bad for us as a community. But Prof, I think we'll take this one question. We've got 2 votes. Do you think there's been progress in gender equality in the past years, especially in this country or in this region?
Okay, if anything, can I just... Yeah, okay. I think I wouldn't say progress, but certainly it's moving there. It's a slow progress, maybe. Yeah, a slow one. Yeah, I know Izzana still has to fight. Kan ya? I know her team. Yeah, she's the youngest. Kan ya? And she and her team and people like you here. You have a long way to go, certainly. But there is progress, certainly. I can see it now. Yeah, although we would like to think that that progress is genuine. Yeah, it's not because there is a need for that 30%. Yeah, because I think we don't like to be in that 30%. We would rather not be chosen. Yeah, if it means that we're not just as good. You know, I think we want to be there because we are good. You know, we want to be there because we have that merit. We're smart, we're intelligent women, we're articulate, you know, and we need to be there, you know? No, not for the quota. So I think for us in Malaysia, we see already a change, but there's a lot more that can be done. Yeah, a lot more. I think men are realizing that women in this country are intelligent. I think, yeah. You know, I think we are. I think that's for sure, you know. And not just in our country. I think my counterparts, my friends overseas are telling me that. You know, it is so conscious for them that, you know, I didn't wear this. Not until I was like 40s, you know. Late 40s, actually. Yeah, very late 40s. So among the scientists, leader scientists in the country, it was late for me. So you'd be surprised that young scientists in Malaysia, young Muslim scientists in Malaysia, was this very early, yeah, in university days. And I didn't. I had my reason. I need to find out. I need to know. I need to understand. Being a scientist as well, I need to understand. I need to know why I'm wearing. I need to learn the Quran. I need to understand why. So it took me a longer time. Yeah? And I remember there was one, you know, when I first wore it, and I was back in England, you know, to present a paper, and my friends there, colleagues, were just shocked when they saw me. You know, they first couldn't take it. But when I presented, and after everything happened, then they said to me, Halimah, I think it was a great idea to wear. You know, because when you stood there, out there, we could see that you were representing a Muslim woman that was so intelligent and articulate. I think, and that makes a difference, they said. Because they were getting all this news, all this round the media that was saying what kind of Muslim women, you know, how submissive, you know, Muslim women are, and the rest of it, you know. So they said, in a way, it is good, Halimah, but of course I didn't wear for that reason. It's a very personal reason with me and Allah. But again, you know, that was the feedback that I get, which means that, yeah, people do notice, actually, you know. So I think there's this other group of women then, which means I was helping, which means that I have made something move forward for Muslim women generally in the world, you know. So I think that is great, you know. That is something that I think that we never thought of before, you know. So yes, I think if I can say, yeah, we are moving slowly.
There's been progress.
But surely there's progress,
yeah.
yes.
And I think
a lot more can be done.
still a long way to go. And I think amongst us in the crowd, each one of us, when you do something great, or I'm not saying great as in go to the moon, but just doing something good in the community, you're actually speaking on behalf of people who couldn't or who don't believe in themselves. So it's not just about doing something like massive national, level or world level. Something it could be just at your group level, your circle of friends. And Izzana, you are in this, world where you deal with young women, and we're talking about progress in equality. And how do you see that right now?
I think I would preface this by saying that there is great growth, progress, and advancement within the women's community, and not just in Malaysia, but I think globally. Whether it's education, whether it's finding and using our voice, whether it's being comfortable in all the identities that we represent, and knowing what we want and going for it. Because we Girls for Girls, we're active in 33 countries. And so that means that I have, in my work, I have direct access and conversation with women across 33 countries, whether it's just in that country or I mix them up within the region, and I hear the kind of gender bias they go through, but also how they persevere and get through the other side and still succeed, right? And so I feel that there's great hope in the women of today, those in this room, but also the younger generation out there, because they know what they want. And with the advancement of technology and the tools that are at our fingertips, I think that they will get there much faster than we all would. It's about knowing how to utilize what tools are available to you, right? And today, the democratization of free tools and knowledge that's available out there, if you put your back into it, you will get there much faster than all of us can. Right? You want to talk about AI, you want to talk about micro-credentials, you want to talk about getting postgraduate, whatever it is that you want to advance yourself out there, to be a better speaker, to be a better negotiator, to start your own company, to find funding. All what were problems, say even 5 years ago, those gaps have been plugged. And so what I gather we will see will be this huge uprising of young women leaders. And I'm both terribly excited and a little bit afraid for what's to come, because the world will look completely different, I feel. We talk about challenges, and I see one question here, if you don't mind that I pick that and answer. Somebody asked, what is the one change you really want to see happen? Is that I hope that in the very near future, the kind of work that I do, which means my NGO bit, which is not my full-time job, but the kind of NGO space that focuses on gender equality and women empowerment, my wish is that our kind of work becomes redundant. Because that means that it's no longer necessary. This is the conversation that's happening at home, whether it's in the urban space or the rural space, whether it's happening at the masjid or at the school, it's all happening. And so you don't need women activists or feminists to go out there and say, yes, you can do it. These are the tools. Let's hold each other's hands. Let's go. No, it becomes part of the way we live. And I think that actually that's going to happen sooner than I thought was going to happen when I set up my NGO. So it's a great thing.
And probably if you were too strong, maybe you might have Boys for Boys.
Actually,
NGO
that's
come
so
up
funny
and
you should say that. I go to universities and corporates and different NGOs and government agencies to partner for a program, right? I cannot tell you the amount of times I get deans and CEOs and heads of, all asking, Izzana, can you do Boys for Boys? And I'm like, let me talk to you about the data kejap. But the idea actually, and this happens a lot in universities, because actually the young girls are so vocal now. You cross my line, what? They will have the data right at their fingertips. But the boys are apparently holding back because the women empowerment movement is so strong. It's seeped into our young women's souls, which is fantastic. But at the same time, by no means do we want our boys to become weaker. We want, as a whole nation, to rise up together. And that was that gap. The men were up here and women from data were, staggering around here. We wanted to push the women, where we have zero interest in making our boys weaker. If data at one point supports that, that's a problem and that has to be worked on.
And we don't want that to happen. And we're not saying we need more women in leadership. We just want an equal representation of women and men, because that's when you have gender diversity. And it's called diversity. We're not calling in for feminism in all levels. And if we have this one question with Liz, your example, how can women stand their ground? And this is specifically if it's towards other women, and because we are our own enemy sometimes, and it's other women that bring us down or pull us down from positions of power.
Do men have this problem?
I think they do, yeah.
Huh? They do, yeah?
Yeah, they're
Yeah, I'm
less
sure
lah.
they do. Of course they do.
Dia
Of
tak
course
tunjuk,
they do.
dia tak tunjuk.
Of course they do. But they are okay. They can go teh tarik, isap rokok, you know. So, the boys club, rub shoulder,
Dia
oh,
punch sekejap, lepas tu dia, okay,
exactly.
friends.
But women don't do that. Women don't do that. So I always believe that, I'm going to say something about what you said just now, but I do after this. Because my brains is like trying to remember what's being said. Anyway, so how can women stand their ground? To tell the truth, if you ask me, women, I do not know other women, but if you ask me, I will tell you, how I stand my ground is I ignore the noise. It's not easy to do. It's not easy. I have 3 daughters and 1 son. My son is the youngest. He can tell you there's so much noise at home. 4 women and him. He will go crazy. But I think you just have to ignore the noise. That's why I told my children, stand on your own. Be smart. I remember my kids when they were young, girls. So they like to wear mini skirts. So they are 15 years old and wearing mini skirt. And then they said, and then tengah jalan dengan I, and then suddenly adalah man yang kacau. Man, why not? Mini skirt. Woo, cool. So the man was doing, and then my daughter said, Mama, why is the man staring at me? I got really angry. Now, first I was angry at the man, right? Who asked you to stare at my daughter? Then I look at my daughter, she's wearing a skirt, short skirt. And I look at my daughter, you know what, honey? This is what you're going to do. You are not going to tell me that the man is looking at you. You know why? Because if you're going to wear a mini skirt, own it. Own it. Be confident. Don't worry that people stare at you, people don't like you, you have fat legs. Who cares? Wear it and own it. You don't have to give any excuses for your behavior. So, in order for you to not stress me out, right? Wear pants.
Yes.
Wear pants. And my daughter said, okay, Ma. But after a while, they learned. So that's how you create confidence. Be confident with yourself. Stand on your ground. Women, men, especially men, love gossiping. Women, they talk about makcik bawang, typical. They talk women, but men love gossiping, and women love talk bad about other people. It's just fun. So ignore. There will always be people who hates you, love you, don't like you, and stuff like that. So who cares, right? If you learn how to get rid of that noise, I think you'll be fine. Anyway, for your boys to boys, right? Such a fantastic idea, but I think, forget about it. I think what we should teach our boys, our son or the men, is respect. Respect to women like how you respect your mother. And I think that is not apparent now. Most cases, mothers at home with their sons, sayang anak I tak payahlah buat kerja. And then when the minute the son got married and they have to share the responsibility with the wife, the mother-in-law will say, why is my son doing the dishes? Right? I taught my son to wash the dishes, cook the rice, sweep the floor, because I said it's not my job. It's not your sister's job, but they have to do it because they are my daughter, but it's not my job. So do it. So again, if we were to ever have boys to boys, I don't mind being in that NGO. Yeah, and I think I just want to teach the boy respect. Open the door for your woman. My son does that to me, guys. I'm sorry, my son is perfect. Yeah, he opened my doors. No, he's getting married.
Okay, sorry.
Next year, he has a Ukrainian girlfriend. Don't play.
Pray.
Yeah. So now we have two. So we have men and women, and then we have the LGBTQ. Yeah, which Malaysia, a lot of companies always say we are a diverse and diversity and inclusive company. Tipu. If you say that you embrace diversity and inclusion, you are lying through your teeth. It is not true. No company in Malaysia embraced inclusiveness. No. Yes. And I remember when I was working in a company before, I remember my guy in the annual report, and they said, we are a diverse and inclusive organization. I asked them to take it out. And they asked me, why? I said, berapa orang bangsa lain dekat dalam company ni? Then they look at me, it's 90% Malays, 10% other races. Is that diversity? Is that inclusive?
No.
Please lah, don't write it down. Why do you make yourself look like a fool when people were to ask you, are you a diverse and inclusive organization? And, that's my biggest angst, yeah? But because I work for a US company, and Tantalus is a Canadian company, they are diverse and inclusive. And you know what? They are open about it. And sometimes I'm shocked. But I accept people as their choices. I may not agree with it, but that's my business. My personal take has nothing to do with the organization. So I think if people were to practice it that way, then, maybe the world can be a better place. And I'm still struggling with gender equality. And then now you put LGBTQ in it, I lagi stress. Especially when they have the day, right? I'm still confused about the day. THEY. Day. So you day. Yeah. So every time somebody asks me what day is, and I told them day is people with multiple personalities. So I kata, Mama, I said yes, they are split.
Yes, split personality.
They are split personalities. So then they said, so you are also day lah, Mama. So I said yes, I'm a day. Yeah. Thanks.
So, but back to the polling just now, if you talk about gender equality, if you notice, all of you voted that you guys have majority women, so you need to work on that. You need to have more men in your company or your team, because like even my company, I think 90% and 1% is like she, he, him, her. So it's like the LGBTQ punya category lah. So we're guilty of that, but sometimes susah lah, laki ni tak pandai kerja events lah, they are really, lepas tangan aja tahu dia buat sikit, okay siap, like we cannot have that, we're like, micromanagers. So okay, since we have only about 2 minutes left and I don't want to keep you from your happy hour, we'll go for the last question. How do you balance your time with family, especially with children, and still be a woman leader in an organization? And I think that applies to all of you guys. Perhaps an advice to the younger generation, how do you have work-life balance at work? Yeah. Prof, you go first.
Yes, I think that's very, very important. And I've tried to do that, I think. All of us, I'm sure, did that. But I knew that when I started, when I was young, I always put priority on the family, always first. I always say even to my young ones now, that they must give priority to their family. I think you need to know your priorities when you work. You have to give 100% when everything is well to the company, because that's an obligation, because you have promised to do that, yeah. So therefore you have to do that, yeah. But at the same time, when your child is very sick, you have to go back. So your priorities must always be right. Priorities was never me when I was younger. You know, it was always working very, very hard, and at the same time, the family must come first. Yeah? And then as I grow, of course, as you move along and your child gets older, they become more independent, they're more on their own. And I remember when they were teenagers, my God, I had 2 boys. So you know how difficult that was. You know, one, very easy to look after, very clever, straight A's from young, went to Malay College, and the second one was more challenging for me, entirely different, entirely opposite. Had a girlfriend at Form 1. Whoa. Yes, yeah, good for him, yeah. But I never said no. You know, I think this is it. If you want to learn from me, you know, that is perhaps one thing you can learn from me, you know, that I actually allowed him, but I actually called the parents to my house. One day she stayed in my home. You know, this girl stayed in my home because she had tummy ache and stayed in my home. My son went to school, but she stayed in my house. So when I came back, the helper told me. So I said, So I asked my son, can I have her number? You know, so I spoke to her and said, I'd like to meet your parents, you know, just to call her for tea. You know, she was very frightened. I said, no, it's nothing. Auntie just want to meet her, you know, to meet your parents and maybe to have tea with them. So I did call. And, you know, we had tea and we talked about the birds and the bees in front of them. They were giggling, of course, you know, but we told them that they were just Form 1 and they have a long way to go to university. And you know, they were actually together till Form 5. Wow. Yes, and I was sad when they broke up. Both me and the mother. You know, both of us were so sad. But they were friends. They became good friends. And they were in touch with each other. And each time,
puppy love lah.
Yeah, tapi we chaperoned actually when they went out. I would follow them and then leave them and say to them, okay, you can watch a movie or 2 and I'll wait for you and we'll have tea in about 3 hours, you know? But no, they'll come back at 2.5 hours, you know? So I think when you give them that leeway, they will respect it, you know? You cannot say no because they will do behind your back anyway, if that is something that you want to learn, you know, from me. And I think that is, and you know, I want to say that I'm so lucky in the sense that I have an evidence from my son because when he went to a foundation, he had to write about his friend, you know, your best friend. And he was the only one that wrote my mother, my mother, my soulmate, my best friend. Yeah, you know, and it was so touching. And I still have it until today. He was so shy to show it to me, actually, but his older brother gave it to me. And I've kept it until today. And if ever I gave a talk, and I get doctors who call me and say, Prof, we see you the way you are. We've been following you. You've never changed. How do you keep yourself the way you are? How you looked always like life is so worth living? You know, you're always smiling how do you do it? And how do we have this work-life balance? And I always say your family must always be close to you. You know, family must always come first. But at the same time, you must never abide your work, of course, because that's your obligation, as I said. You know, but of course you have to have something else that you love. I love my job, that's for sure. I love the university, I love the students, I love my research. And I love what I'm doing right now, all in all, to cut it short, I just love. So work is just not work. It's like a hobby. So when you take your work like a hobby, it's nothing. But at the same time, I have real hobbies too. I paint. Yeah, I do oil. Yeah, and I write children's books. Yeah, I used to be a children's writer, actually. Quite a good one when I was young. But I don't do, I've not done it for some time. But in fact, someone have just asked me, and I'm thinking about it, to write books on energy, you know, how to teach young kids to know, to understand energy, to talk about energy saving, to talk about the planet, to talk about sustainability, climate change, and the rest of it. So that's in the process now. In fact, I've just written something to bring in, you know, so that's what we're going to do. I'm getting a group of people to do this with me, yeah? Let me know if you're interested. You can come in. Yeah, yes, you know, so certainly. So I think, yes, you have to have that work-life balance, you know? And work-life balance is not like half 8 hours a day, 4 hours must be resting, 4 hours work, no. You know, but you find it at other times. You find that time at other times to relax and enjoy. You know, today, my choo-choos are also one of the things that gives me joy. So I think, you know, you'll find it. You have to find something. You have to find what works for you. you know, and it can be work. It doesn't have to be anything else for that matter. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. So everyone, find a hobby that you can work on. Liz, since we've 0 seconds right now, so a quick one for you and Izzana.
Sorry, guys, you're going to listen to me. I'm just kidding. Anyway, okay, work-life balance is a myth. The company will give you have work-life balance, but trust me, it's a myth. Work-life balance is about you. How do you want to balance your life? Yeah, I have 4 kids. I'm a single mother for 23 years. I worked really hard to get to where I am. I had to fight tooth and nails, blood, sweat and tears to fight people, you know, technically really fight people to get to where I am. But it was fun. But if you ask my kids, have I ever neglected them? They will tell you I'm always home for dinner, just so you know. My trick is very simple. If I want to go gallivanting, I'll do it after 10. My kids are tidur, then I go tarik my girlfriends, yeah? And I will come home for dinner because I miss my time with my kids. They do not have a father to help them. Well, they have the maid. Hello, Indonesian maid. Lama anak I cakap Indon, yeah? And then you need to be able to balance that. So my idea in the office is every time I go to office, I tell everyone, no more meeting after 6. If you have a meeting after 6, I'm not there. And I was so disciplined. I'll be the first one in the office because I have to send my kids to school. I'll be basically the first one to leave the office. And if any of my staff stay late, I will ask them, what are you doing? Don't you have a family? There must be something wrong with you if you have to work late. Do we have a deadline? Because seriously, right? If you can wait, you can do it tomorrow. So that's work-life balance, is discipline. So if you don't have discipline, how are you going to have work-life balance? Again, it's a myth. So next time, if anybody asks you what is work-life balance, it's a myth. It's all about you, guys. The choice is in your hands. If you want to spend time with your kids, you will. I'm coaching this lady just for a short story. I coach this lady, and she comes home every day at 10 p.m. Every day. So I asked her, so what do you do? She said, I have a lot of meetings in the office. Okay, then? It's jam. So I will go home after Maghrib. Then? They say, that's the time that, So did you do work? She said, then she kept quiet. And I asked her, so in a day, how many percent you buat kerja? Basically, 20%. Yeah? Because why? The whole day is meeting. Please lah. I really don't understand why you have too many meetings. And then the next one is, the 6 o'clock is actually fun time. Fun, 10 o'clock. Anak kat rumah 5 orang. 5 kids. And I told her, stop it. Stop it. I said, is your husband okay with it? No. I said, so stop it. Go back when it's time to go back. Okay, can we do this? I said, can try 1 day in a week. I'm asking her to do it 1 day in a week because she does nothing before the 10 o'clock. And she did it. And the husband was very happy. And then the husband asked, who taught you this? Is that lady, that coach, Liz? And she said, yes. And then he said, I like this lady. Can I say thank you to her? And I told her, hello, one change of behavior changes everything. So think about it, ladies, if you're married and you have kids. If you're not married, do whatever you want. But if you're married and you have kids, that's how you do it.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, go ahead, Izzana.
A little bit short and sweet from me since I don't have children and I'm not married. But I can say from 2 perspectives. One is on my own. Somebody who ran multiple organizations. I think the work-life balance is about caring upwards. So we're not caring for children, but we're caring for other elders in our family. And still maintaining your mental health. I think in today's day and age, especially post-COVID, not that any data supports this, but we're seeing a lot more health issues. not just in the medical sense, but also mental health, like how do we balance that? A lot of it comes with ensuring that you have the right support system. What, that could be officially as a therapist or a friend who functions as a therapist, someone for you to talk to. So that's a single girl's perspective. But another is, I think, I can share with you my parents, my mother, who is extremely exemplary when it comes to running a tight ship at home. Her work involved managing over 4 million women. But like Liz, she was always home for dinner. Anytime I was sick, she was there. Any concert, swimming gala, everything, she was there. And I grew up always asking her, like, how do you do it? How are you out there running a ministry, running political parties and everything? She was in charge of 4 million women right in her hands and half this nation. My mom was a minister before. How did you do it? And she said that it takes a village. And so what did that mean? When I was growing up, my grandma stayed with us. Right, and this, we don't mean like helpers or mates necessarily, but sometimes you have to tap into friends or cousins. I grew up with staying at auntie's house when mom had to work late, and so did dad. And so until today, alhamdulillah, that meant that I have a very close family, but that meant that my mom could fulfill her role, her potential as a working woman, but also her role as a mom and wife. She never ever missed a single task as a mom for us when we were growing up, for myself and my brothers. And so whilst I may not be able to answer that, I share with you how my mom raised us. And until today, I'm so grateful that she showed up for everything I needed her to. Thank you.
All right, and that wraps up our session. We were afraid that we didn't have enough to talk about and we would do it in 30 minutes, but now we've ran over in almost 1 hour, and I think that was a really good session. And thank you everyone for your questions and for your attention. And we hope to see you. If you have any other questions, we'll be out there. See you at the Penang booth. Thank you very much.
Okay, a heartfelt thank you to our remarkable speakers for sharing their wisdom and experiences. So hopefully your insights have empowered us to strive for greater heights and embrace our potential. So before we conclude our today's inspiring session, I would like to invite Ms. Margaret, Manager of Business Development, to present the token of appreciation to our fellow speakers and moderators. Okay, first up, can we have Emeritus Prof. Dato, Dr. Halimah Badioze Zaman. Please come to side, please. Yes. Oh, kejap. Okay. Okay. Okay, next up, Ms. Liz Kamaruddin. Ms. Izzana Salleh. And lastly, our lovely moderator, Ms. Manap. Margaret, do you want to have one or just